Welcome back to Couch Talk, everybody. I'm Joe, and today we're here to talk about the movie The Happy Time Murders. Every couple of years, we get a movie featuring puppets of some sort. There was also an attempt at a live-action remake with Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy, but it was a very mature take on it, and it was very what they're doing now. Like, they didn't revive it in the sense of a kid show where they're kids. They revived it like they were all adults living in the real world, and they're going through real problems with addiction and all this other drama. And I didn't watch it, but from what I heard, a lot of people liked it, but it didn't have enough of a following or viewership to warrant continually making more seasons, so the show wound up getting canceled. So this movie was kind of like their last attempt at reviving this sort of puppet franchise. And I mean, I don't watch the Muppets anymore or anything like that, but I grew up watching them. I was in that generation of kids that grew up watching Sesame Street and all those shows. And even though I don't watch it, I was kind of excited to see this because they kind of go in the same direction that J.K. Rowling went with Harry Potter. If you watch The Sorcerer's Stone, which is the first Harry Potter movie, it was very much so a children's movie. It didn't have a lot of violence in it, wasn't very dramatic, wasn't very serious. It was a lot of that awe factor of going to Hogwarts for the first time. And as you grew older with Harry Potter, the movies began to get much more serious. And by the last one, there was a lot of death, and a lot of sacrifice, and a lot more seriousness. The writing developed into a much more mature tone. And, J.K. Rowling straight up said that she wanted to evolve and grow older with the audience that grew up with this movie. And that's, what they're trying to do with the Happy Time Runners. They're trying to take the Muppets and they're reaching out to the audience that grew up with the show and saying, look, we know you're older, so here's a much more older and mature version for you. Thus, the R-rating, raunchy, The Happy Time Murders, starring Melissa McCarthy playing the same character she plays in everything else. This movie is about a puppet named Philip Phillips, who was once a cop, but something happens that causes him to leave, and he's a disgraced detective, but he later becomes a private eye to, make a little extra cash. And, he does, little petty, cases here and there, taking, odd jobs, just, little extra cash. And then he gets thrust into this big murder investigation where the cast members of an old 80s children's show featuring puppets are getting killed off one by one, and the only way he can crack the case is with the help of his old partner, played by Melissa McCarthy. Fun fact, Melissa McCarthy's character was also supposed to be a man. I guess a Ryan Reynolds type of character. They were supposed to have a buddy cop, two guys dynamic, but I really liked Melissa McCarthy in this movie. I know I made a little jab about her playing the same character that she always does, but I kind of like when she does more of the action heavy stuff because it's impressive to see her do her own stunts, which I believe she does try and do as much of them as she can, and it's definitely outside of the realm of what she's used to doing, which is nice. This movie is directed by Ryan Henson, who also did Muppet Treasure Island and The Muppet Christmas Carol. Both decent enough movies, but this isn't a big director. He's not really known for much of anything else. He works on a couple TV shows here and there, but he's not huge, nor has he ever done action before. And I was actually surprised. The action in this movie was really good. Aside from Melissa McCartney, Bill Beretta is the voice behind Phil Phillips. I believe he also does the animatronics. He's the guy with his hands and the sleeves working the hands for the detective. Elizabeth Banks is also in this as who's the lead actor of that old kids TV show, The Happy Time Gang. The show where all the people are getting killed off. And she, winds up becoming a stripper. You see that in the trailer for the movie, and she's in the movie, but not for very long, very briefly. Maya Rudolph is also in this movie, as well as Joe McHale, and a nice little character that was thrown in there that I didn't know that was in this movie is actually Leslie David Baker, and he was in The Office, so it's nice to see him still getting work after that show. I always loved his character. Stanley was the man. But honestly, yeah, about the movie. Now, like I said, they wanted to make this much more mature so that they reach out to the audience that used to watch this. But they should have stuck with one genre. Now, I think it's alright, so they're making a Muppet movie, right? And they want to make it serious. And I feel that adding the raunchiness was kind of lazy because, like, I get it. It's funny to see these puppets doing things like drugs and sex and like gang banging and killing. That's all fun and stuff, but you could have a good movie like this with just a serious comedy. Like, it doesn't have to be raunchy, but I think that they were afraid that without the raunchiness, people would kind of be like, why are we going to go see like a serious slash comedy movie about Muppets? Why not just throw real people in there? So they try to get everything they can out of like these puppets. Like, what would people want to see more? Like the biggest over the top things you could see involving puppets, or just like a serious like detective movie. And it's sad because the detective movie to me was my favorite part of the movie. The comedy, it works sometimes. I laughed a couple times, but not as much as you'd think. Like, the trailer blew me away. I thought it was going to be really good, but they rely so heavily on like just sex jokes and drug jokes, and it's like the first couple times it's like funny, but it loses steam like halfway through the movie, and they just keep relying on it. And like there is like one or two other like non like sex joke related things that made me laugh, but really 90% of it is just that. And all the rest of the jokes kind of just fall flat and seems like really corny and cringeworthy writing for both Phil Phillips and Melissa McCarthy's character. And like the banter that they have back and forth, like when they're not talking shit, it's genuine, but when they're talking shit, it's almost like it's so corny, like it's not something that two people would actually say to each other. And when they are bantering back and forth, it's kind of just Melissa McCarthy shitting all over the puppet, and the puppet like not really having any good comebacks. So it like wasn't good back and forth. It was just her kind of being an asshole to the puppet, Phil. I would have much rather than make this just like a serious detective movie, because, like I said, like making a movie about puppets and humans like colliding, like making it raunchy isn't really gonna draw in any other crowds than the crowd that's already going to see it for the fact that there are Muppets in it. Like, if you don't care to see a movie with Muppets, nothing was gonna bring people to see this. So if you're gonna make a movie about Muppets, make it good and just make it a good detective story. If you want to throw comedy in there, like you can, like look at Bad Boys, you know. That's a comedy, but it's also a very serious movie, and it doesn't rely on like these heavy like sexual dick jokes and like just all this stuff like that. I would have much rather just a detective story, or go the other route and make just like a like Muppets all grown up. Like, make a serious movie about what it's like after acting and how they're struggling to like make payments and on their rent or find other work, because this movie is also very metaphorical for racism. Like, they don't come out and say like racist. Well, actually they do in like one brief scene, which was funny, but you know, they treat these puppets like anyone else that was a victim of you know, a racist hate crime, and they're looked down upon and like spit on and just, you know, treated like really horrible, and like they're very unwanted in like human society. And it's a reflection of how the racism is still such a huge problem today. So just make a movie straight up about that. But they tried to mix like this racist backstory with this somewhat predictable detective story with this really raunchy comedy, and they all just didn't mesh well. But like I said, the best part of the movie, in my opinion, was the detective work. The action was filmed really good, which is surprising from a guy that's never really filmed any action before. It was all very solidly well done. There was no shaky cam, which a lot of directors use when they haven't filmed a lot of action movies because they don't know how to. Melissa McCarthy was, you know, fine. She's a little bit better than normal, but the best character in this movie to me is Phil Phillips. He has the biggest arc and the most heart, and he was just the most enjoyable to watch. The only other problems I have with this movie are there are some serious plot holes, and I know, it's a puppet meets human mankind movie, so you have to suspend some disbelief. This isn't a problem with the fact that there are puppets alive, but there's like some things in this movie that like need explaining, even though it's in this like fake world where puppets exist, that they don't explain. Like without going into spoilers, like there's like one very small scene where you see like a puppet in a hot tub, which a lot of people wouldn't second guess, but it's like, how is this puppet in a hot tub when he comes out and he's completely dry from the waist down? He should be soggy and wet. They don't explain what happens to certain characters at the end. Like, something happens to like a couple of them, and then like in the last scene, like you still don't know what happened to them, and the movie ends. And it's not like it ends on a cliffhanger or anything. Like, it ends like a nice little bow, but you just don't know what happened to these certain characters. And I left the theater like trying to figure out if they plan on making a sequel, which I mean I'm sure they would have liked to, but they didn't leave you on a cliffhanger to the point where it needed a sequel. So I don't know why they like had so many huge big plot holes at the end. I'll mention what they are at the very end of this video after I say like my goodbye, in case you were wondering. And if anyone wants a full spoiler review, I will do that. But yeah, it's just, this movie's like, I wanted so bad to like this movie. They clearly wanted to make a franchise out of this, but I mean, it's bombing. It's tanking at the box office, behind Crazy Rich Asians and The Meg and Mission Impossible. You know, it's really hard for this movie to do good, especially since Melissa McCarthy didn't go on press tour for this, so she didn't advertise this movie at all. I don't know if it's because she was afraid this movie was going to be bad or if she was ashamed of being in it, but it didn't get like the advertisement it deserved either. And it's tanking, and I don't want to say like good, like, you know, movies like this shouldn't be made, but because, like I said, the detective part of this movie is good, and I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the action, and I enjoyed some of the comedy, and you know what? Watching, like, these puppets, like, move around and do stuff is really impressive, and, like, you have to understand, there is a team behind that. Like, it is not CGI, it is actually people in green suits moving around these puppets, and then they're being CGI'd out of the frame. And it's just really impressive to see it, and I wasn't miserable in this movie. I wasn't mad leaving it. I just wanted it to be better. So I'm not going to say this movie is complete dog shit. And I wouldn't mind seeing another one, but they just ditch the raunchiness and then stick with another detective story or something. That's just my opinion. I'm going to give this movie a 5. I really didn't hate it, but I was a little upset at the route that they took to bring these characters to the big screen again. If they do get a chance, which I doubt it, to make a sequel, hopefully it's good. This movie's currently sitting at, like, I think a 23% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know what it is by fans, but that's what it is by critics. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you like what you saw here, please like the video, please subscribe, and as always, I'll catch you next time. So those plot lines that I mentioned, this is a spoiler again, so beware. If you don't want to see this, please turn the video off. So Elizabeth Banks, her character in the movie, winds up dying in a car explosion from the main bad guy, and at the very end of the movie she like shows up again. You find out that she's not actually dead, and then she gets knocked out by the main bad guy again, and then that's just the last time you see her. So I'm not going to go super into details, but if anyone sees the movie, let me know if like I missed anything, or if like she was there and like maybe I like blanked or looked at my phone or something. I mentioned the bathtub scene, that just didn't make any sense to me how he got out, and he was perfectly fine. If you saw the movie, you know what I'm talking about. The hot tub scene, I mean. And also, Phil Phillips was broken out of, you know, jail with Melissa McCarthy, went on the run, and they both knocked out and killed a bunch of people in the very end. All of the evidence linking the main, you know, the bad guy killing everyone in this movie, the girl, all the evidence that it was her was burned. So they went and just killed her when she was getting on a plane with no evidence as to why they did it. All of the cops just believed Melissa McCarthy and Phil Phillips when they said that she was the bad guy. Melissa McCarthy just broke this guy out of jail with Phil Phillips, you know, and they went on the run and just started killing people with no proof that they are the bad guys. And there was absolutely no repercussions. It just doesn't make sense to me. If anyone could elaborate for me, maybe I'm missing something here. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.